we're just about to leave here at our camp on Marsh Lake, and it's interesting. We've been here since Sunday, 3 o'clock or so, but it feels like we've been here a long time, and had 2 really nice days going into Cranberry, and yesterday a wonderful day in Round Lake, and today we got a bit of cloud, but the forecast says it won't get raining, so that's a good thing. Frank's just finishing up a little bit. Got a little bit of a breeze. And yeah, a lot of bugs at this site. Not as bad as mink was last year, but you know, you get kind of tired of it. But or not, it's been really nice here. And it's now pushing on 3 full days. We haven't seen any people at all, which is surprising given that this is not in the far north. It's a remarkable site here. And it's been really nice.
This thing was when this area was being filled.
It's got to be 3 feet across. It's just amazing. While waiting for Frank to pack up at the camp, I crossed the lake and by accident stirred a pair of loons and was able to get some excellent images. After this, we paddled back through Marsh and then Wolf Lake, and then ultimately through the 2 portages and the swamp onto 9 Mile. At the end of the portage into 9 Mile, the mosquitoes were something else, and we had to paddle almost a kilometer to get away from them. There was a bit of a headwind on 9 Mile, and we both had to put our heads down and simply paddle the 8K, and we didn't make any video. At the end, we had a nice portrait of our time together. At 9 Mile Lake, the bugs were pretty bad at the campsite, so hopefully you'll forgive me for doing the gear review after I got back home again. I'm going to review 4 or 5 items that were new or used differently on this trip than in the past. One of the things that's been a challenge for me when I've been camping is to have a decent table to set my plate on or whatever, and instead of having things tumbling into the dirt. And so I looked around in the winter and I found this item here, and I got it on Amazon, and true to form, I don't know exactly. Let's see if we have it in here. I'm going to set it up for you. So it comes in 2 pieces. It's the Villey, V-I-L-L-E-Y, folding camping table. So there you go. Now, I wanted something that was not too flexible so you could put a little bit of weight on it. So first off, you have the leg system, which is, again, there are no loose parts, which is really nice. So you've got one stick that goes this way. We get it standed properly here. And it'll click in there. And the other one across to here, same thing. And then all you have left is your tabletop. The tabletop, of course, is smooth on the top and less so on the bottom. And there's these notches, and you've got these 2 rods underneath. So you just flip it over and find the rods in the one side and in the other side. And you know what? You got yourself a little table. It's pretty nice. And the only thing I take away from it was that this is very smooth. And I found that if you didn't have it perfectly level, that things would start to slide. So what would that do? Peanut butter, jar of peanut butter would start to slide. The stove gas would start to slide. Things like that. So that's something I maybe, whether I sanded a bit to make it, or maybe I was thinking of putting on every other piece here some of that grit that they use on steps or whatever to keep from slipping. Either way, I really, for $30 roughly speaking, this thing's been really nice. I really have enjoyed it. It's also something I take along on a day hike, just to sit and have my lunch and be able to lay my sandwiches and so forth out on this instead of on the ground. So again, it's the Villi folding camping table, and I got it off of Amazon. When I put this together, you can see there's enough gaps here that if I did put the grit in between, I think it wouldn't impede it at all. So I think I might just do that. And again, it's just so quick. And there you go. One of my fears filming on canoe trips, whether it's for YouTube or myself, is the changing of cameras somehow and then the being careless for a moment, or the canoe moves in the wind and the camera ends up in the drink. So the thread-on mounts, which are fine when you're stable, but with that you can easily fool yourself and end up with losing control of the camera, and I was quite concerned about that, especially when you're oftentimes changing the orientation of a camera or reversing it or with something like that. So I wanted something that I could feel a little bit better about. So this is what I came up with. I got this off of Amazon, and I will put the name of it in the links because I don't have it with me right now. So that's this piece here. And this is the part you screw into the camera, and this part you screw into the tripod. Now it has a 3/8 inch adapter, so you can use an 3/8 inch screw if you have a tripod like that, or you put this adapter into the standard 1/4 20 thread, whatever. What's nice about it is that this then stays on the camera, this stays on the tripod or whatever, and then you have this screw which opens a dovetail joint. There's a dovetail on this, and you put it in the middle, just put it together and screw it tight, and you can easily hold the camera or whatever. It feels much more secure. In addition, if you loosen it slightly, you get a little bit of motion, but it's captive. So I got 3 of these. So I put the bases on my tripods and the bases on my cameras, and then you can interchange very quickly without any fuss. And I forget, but I think they were something like $15 each, and they're die-cast metal. They're substantial, and I think pretty happy with them. In addition, you've got a little level bubble there if it would ever mean anything. So I'm pretty happy with this result, and you'll see these in the subsequent things I talk about in this video. If you're enjoying this video, I would ask that you take a moment now and subscribe to my channel, Hiking with Henry, and give this video a like. It would help me build my channel. Thank you very much. So for tripping and so forth, weight is always a concern, and I decided initially to work with a point and shoot style camera. I was able to obtain a Panasonic ZS40, which has a 30x optical zoom and does pretty well with these trips, and of course doesn't weigh very much, and if you do make a mistake, you're not dumping pushing a $1,000 DSLR into the lake. So I just decided to go with this, certainly for backpacking. Now the body doesn't let me do as much backpack as I used to, but nevertheless. So with this camera, again, you're holding it in your hands like this. If the canoe is rocking a bit or you get a bit wet, this could slip out of your hands, and it also maybe doesn't allow you to hold it just the way you want to. So you can see on the bottom here is one of the shoes from the quick disconnect I told you about a minute ago. I have one of these of the other type, of the other side, the female type, and this is this new hand grip I purchased. So it's a hand grip, and then there's a camera mount threading on top of it. So what I do is I put this handle on the bottom, one of the mounts I bought. So it's good and strong on there. I then mount my camera on here, And this gives me far more positive control of this camera when I'm panning or holding it to do something, or if I'm zooming, where two hands sometimes is a good idea because this is such an aggressive zoom lens. Now this wasn't very expensive and I really like it. And you'll also see in a minute I made a holster for it on my Canoe, so this whole assembly could just drop in and sit there while I'm paddling. And I'm really keen to try that in more depth. So once again, quick disconnect and the handle to go with the point and shoot. So I really like the handle on the mount of the camera, but when I'm canoeing and I've taken a picture or something, I have to set the camera down, and the bottom of the canoe can be pretty wet. So what I had been doing is putting it behind me on my life jacket, but that can easily lead to tragedy too, especially if it's a little rough out there. So I wanted to build a holder that would be removable without difficulty and be effective. The camera could fall into it without too much trouble. It would stay there, wouldn't get in the way of me switching sides, and wouldn't be an immediate problem when I'm portaging. So I made this, it's a U bolt and a piece of 2x2, so you can see underneath here. And then let's go to this side. We go on this side, you can see the bolts. And then I mounted the Velcro with screws on the inner side. And then the Velcro comes around and wraps tightly around the yoke. Seems to be pretty solid, given what I'm trying to do with it. So I'm going to give that a try. So that's a new item, but I thought I'd throw it in with everything I'm doing on this video. So here's the camera attached in the holster. And if this is too loose, ultimately, if it just doesn't work right, I can always screw those bolts further in and make it fit tighter. But I'm cautiously optimistic it's going to work out really well. So I couple this with my GPS, which I use a Velcro strap around the center of the yoke. I have my camera, my GPS at the ready, just the two things probably going to need in a hurry and or for display purposes. A while ago I purchased an inexpensive action camera for this type of thing, and I used it a little bit, but the problem on a canoe is that with the paddle swing back and forth, you don't want to clobber your camera when you're switching sides. So that necessitates my cameras being fairly forward in the canoe. On top of that, I'd like to be able to control the camera from where I'm sitting with my phone or what have you. And this camera, when I tried to do that, there was an application on Android, but it was now expired and my newer phone wouldn't run it. So I looked at the internet and so forth and decided to buy a more up-to-date version of a similar camera. And this is what I got here. It's nice and compact. And the little camera is certainly an upgrade from the old one, made by Viran. Again, I know it's not a GoPro, but to be frank, my channel has to pay for itself a little bit first before we start spending all kinds of money on these things. This one has a bigger screen on the back. It has options for slow-mo, fast-mo, pictures, and more importantly, you can control it with Wi-Fi, or, which is really cool, is there's this switch that comes with it. And I can hang this in one of the nets on my fishing vest, and as long as the camera's on, I can turn on or turn off the video right from here. I can also take pictures with it too. Now the nice part is if this is facing outward for scenery, in the canoe, I can tell right away if the camera's on. Unfortunately, whatever the scheme, whether it's not working right or it's not, the LED here that maybe could flash every 20 seconds for just to tell you it's recording or something, it doesn't work. Just like the last camera had, and this one may actually not do that, but either way would be really nice, because if you are shooting the canoeist, that you have to make sure the camera's on, because it's very easy to fool yourself. Even with this switch, there's times when you have to click it twice, times you have to click it once, and you really don't know the mode you're in. So it's a little bit of a pain. So for the next trip, I've invested in something where I can easily turn the camera around without losing its security, and I'll review that on the next trip. But that's sort of the idea here. Now this comes with the usual set of accessories. I have also put one of the shoes underneath it when it's in the canoe, and it is quick connected to one of those canoe mounts that I reviewed on my trip to Algonquin last year. Now in this case, the screw well isn't very deep, and so when you try to tighten it, it bottoms out. But by just simply putting a layer of Velcro tape on it here, it gives it enough padding that it works great. So this one certainly doesn't have any motion sensing and so forth, and the audio is not going to be what you want it to be compared to fancy stuff, but the HD is not bad. And in this video, this series of videos of the 9-mile trip, all the canoe footage was taken with this, including the rocks and so forth. So it gives you an idea of what it can do. It's not perfect, but it's a start. During my backpacking trip in Algonquin back in 21, I introduced this device to my video. This is a Bear Vault 500. It's about 11 liters. Good heavy plastic with no grippy areas where the bear could bite through it, theoretically. It has a very small latch on the lid the bear's not going to be able to figure out. And the idea being that you don't have to hang your stuff anymore, you can just leave it somewhere at the site. Remember that in camping, you probably have way more trouble with squirrels and mice than you're going to have with bears and raccoons and skunks and so on. And these containers are totally proof from those. However, for a 1-night or 2-night trip, this is probably going to work. Everybody has different choices with their diet and what privations you're willing to put up with and so on. I have some troubles with my tummy, and so I find sometimes if I change my diet aggressively, I end up with troubles in the bathroom, which is inconvenient when you're camping. And so I tend to try to bring things similar to at home. So I like to bring some bread instead of tortillas or other types of things. And I know that makes it more difficult, and that's just the way it is for me, and it has to be. So what I find with this though is you don't have to have the extra containers, because of course if you put bread in your pack, it's going to get mashed. So you can put the heavier things at the bottom, and then you can put your bread. I just use a Ziploc and put 2 slices in each Ziploc and pile them up as many as you're going to take. And then if you say later on make a sandwich in the morning for lunch, use the same Ziploc to wrap the sandwich for later on. That works out really well. However, this gets too small when you get into 3- and 4-day and 5-day trips. And so then there's the challenge of carrying things outside in the pack. It could be cans, it could be bottle of pop, it could be whatever. And of course, obviously, you can't always take those into parks, but there's a lot of crownland camping as well. So I thought, well, gee, maybe if I found a smaller can like this, it would help me on the longer trips, so I wouldn't have to fuss over it. And that's what I did. This is a 20-liter can, and it works just great. It fits in the canoe pack, no problem. I'm not so sure if it would work in the backpack, probably less so, but that's a different discussion. One of the challenges I had was the lock. So when the snap goes closed, the hole to latch the strap against the band is very slim. And so I had to hunt around to try and find something that would do that. Remembering that, of course, if you're trying to keep an animal away, they could pull with a bit of force. So carabiners were too thick to go through the slot, and if I used them as I was a little worried they could probably, the cheaper kind you get would probably get wrecked. So I used these threaded links here to do this. I guess one of them I could just put a bolt through, but what this does is these are far stronger, so less chance of somebody trying to break in. And you just take this out. Oh, I guess I did it the other way. Oh, I can raise it up. There we go. And then this just slides out. This piece of metal I just found in my junk drawer in the workshop. I don't know where it came from, something I bought years ago, but it's like it was made for it. And then these are just a standard type can lid on them, and off it comes, and you just have a big empty chamber. And it worked pretty well. The things I would say back and forth is that I'm a little concerned in the canoe pack with any sharp edges rubbing against the material and putting a hole in it, especially the latch. So if you do put it in the canoe pack, you really want to think about that a little bit. The other thing is, this one is quasi-translucent. You can see your stuff in there, and you can know where it is and move around and can find it really quickly. There's no hope of that with this, and so I ended up having to take stuff out a lot just to find something. Now that's true with any can, but that one made this a little more convenient. I'm also concerned a little bit with this lip. This gives a bear, for example, something to bite on. Whether he'd bite through the metal and all the rest is an open discussion. And maybe not all of them would. Maybe only 1 in 10 or whatever. And again, how many bears do you get in your camp? I don't know. So that's just a matter of a question as well. This cost me about $60, plus or minus. Now, in retrospect, or maybe in the future, I'm not sure which, I'm tempted, frankly, to get a second one of these. In the canoe pack, this gives you more ability to put the two of them side by side and pack stuff around them. And you still have the double volume, so you could put everything heavy in here, and you could put the bread and all the rest of it, for the most part, in the other one, for example. Or you could put heavy stuff in both of them and then have bread on either one. It's a very appealing decision, although again, this is the best part of $100 for me here in Canada, and so I don't know if I'm doing that just right away, but that's the solution for me, I guess. I got tired of hanging stuff in trees. Many places I go, there are no trees to hang stuff on, or it's inconvenient. The bush is so dense, the trees aren't high enough. Even when you hang it, if you're really honest, the bear could probably get it anyway. I've had friends that had mice climb up the tree and go down the rope right into the food bag. You can have a rodent guard, I know, of course, but still, it was just a whole bunch of challenges, and I can remember spending sometimes a half an hour or more trying to rig one of these things. So being able to just leave this sitting at the site is just so nice. And again, in the 99.9% of the time, you hike and camp and you never get a bear in your camp. If you camp clean, you shouldn't have that happen. You know, and it's just straightforward. I mean, we don't have to have odoriferous foods. We don't have, if we fish, we don't clean our fish at our campsite. You clean them somewhere else, leave the guts on a rock for the birds, and afterwards you clean up. And I've been having, canned stuff or sandwiches, some soup, pudding, things like that for dinner, and sandwiches and oatmeal for the breakfast. My odor footprint is zero, almost. And whether we stay in base camp or we move on from one day to the next, you have to be pretty unlucky to have a bear at your site when you're doing that. Now, obviously, you check the site for bear scat and so forth to see if it's an area habituated by bears. But there's nothing like keeping the site clean. At night, too, any garbage you have is going to go in here as well. And so you get those things. It works out pretty well. Anyhow, thank you again for coming along on this trip and watching my gear review. I would remind everyone that I'm not compensated in any way. Simply just doing my opinion of these products as public service. See you down the trail.